Good morning, everyone. From the darkness to the light is office hours. You got to love these lights here. There we go. Welcome, everybody, to Office Hours. And I'm joined by my amazing mentor, friend, and co-host, Blaine Bartlett. BlaineBartlett.com is where you reach it. It does some amazing things to impact and change your life. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Been doing really well. Been a busy couple of last days.
Last days. It's been a long month this week already. I know you've been all over the world this month. What was the most exciting thing that you've had on your plate there in October as we enter November?
Well, in October, we were in Africa, and we meaning my wife and I with the foundation that you and I both are on the board of, looking at site visits on the projects that we're doing there. Just an extraordinary experience. Absolutely. These guys are just rocking over there. And, we're touching, as you know, over 500,000 people a day with the work that we're doing on this, with this foundation and the Unstoppable Foundation, unstoppablefoundation.org. Yeah.
I was like, why are we hiding the ball? It's the unstoppablefoundation.org. And we're going to bring on our first friend here. Scott Donnell's a friend of mine. He's an author, founder, and podcaster. In fact, I just found out I hadn't been on the Smart Money Parenting podcast. He probably was afraid to have me on, considering people ask me, how the hell did you lose over $1 million? And I tell them I was financially illiterate, although I was educated, law school, business school, undergraduate, did academically extremely well. I'm just amazed not only how many children, Scott, are financially illiterate, but how many parents, which probably even the bigger problem, is financially illiterate. Everything that you do, from your books to your podcast to your company, are based off of simplifying the banking for kids and teens and their parents. Founder of GravyStack, which I am involved in that. Welcome to Office Hours, Scott.
Good to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. Blaine, nice to meet you.
You as well, Scott. I've heard a lot about you and what you're up to, so I'm thrilled to be able to have a conversation with you about this.
Wake up, destroy hell, love people. Simple as that.
There you go.
Love people, create peace. And how big of a problem is, and we think at the surface financial literacy is a problem, but it leads to disease, it leads to criminal behavior, it leads to suicide, depression. There's so many things that people don't realize, that because of our lack of financial literacy and empowerment financially, almost every problem is relative to our financial position and the stresses, distresses, disease that it causes. What are you doing to gamify this so that people, kids, teens, and even parents can learn how to make more money, help more people, and save some lives?
Yeah. So, money is kind of like one of those dominoes. Like, if you don't get it or understand it, it knocks down a whole bunch of other dominoes in your life in the wrong direction. And so, with us, I don't know if you know the quick stats, but less than 1 in 4 Gen Z is financially sound in their early to mid 20s. They're not financially independent. Less than 1 in 4 25-year-olds passes a basic money test. Like, Blaine, here's $100 and there's 2% interest. Next year, do you have more money, less money, or the same, or you don't know? Like, that's the kind of questions that they don't know.
Yeah. So, accounting for inflation, I'm broke.
Yeah. So there's just a big issue. And, schools, it's not only that schools aren't teaching it, it's that schools can't teach this. You can't homework money.
Yeah.
By that rule, David, you and I could play Monopoly and we'd both be real estate billionaires the next day. You can't homework money. You have to earn it. You have to create value first. That's our book, Value Creation Kit. You create value, then you learn how to earn money, then you learn how to manage the money. Like, unless you earn it first and feel that pain and feel like the necessity of like creating value for somebody else, then you're never going to spend it, save it, or share it, or invest it wisely. Right. And you can't teach a kid how to budget just by giving them a piece of paper at school and say, here's debits, here's credits, there, you're set for life. A kid will only budget and plan ahead when they have expenses that they're in charge of, that mom and dad give them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need a motive to earn. And that's why we do GravyStack, right? That's why you've been a part of this thing. We want to be, we have a new term. We want to be the gigs capital of the world. We want to help kids learn financial skills through a bank that's a game. So it's a real bank with a real debit card, with a save, spend, share, and investing accounts. And then ways for kids to earn money around the house, around the neighborhood, starting their first run of products, flipping assets in the garage, canceling subscriptions for mom and dad as a gig, getting coupons for the grocery run, planning the next family trip on a budget, eating in versus eating out and calculating the difference of savings, and 100 other gigs around the house that help them learn and cover their own expenses that parents systematically start handing over to them. That's the game. You do that, you learn everything. You learn budgeting, planning ahead, goal setting, price of goods, trade-offs. You get kids creating value. Now they're not worried about the future. So you get rid of the spoiling and entitlement and laziness and anxiety, victimhood, gone. So anyway, it's a domino. It's a domino.
It's a domino. Yeah, I do a fair amount of work with family offices, and it's basically it's wealth transition. Yeah, how do we move it from one gen to the next gen? And there's a fascinating notion there around entitlement. Yeah, oftentimes it comes into play here, and there's also this orientation around, well, we've got in the inheriting generation, we've got this money. Let's go spend it. Let's go spend it. And that whole notion of wealth is meant to create value, and I love the way that you're positioning that, Scott. I mean, that value creation dynamic. I've got a question here, and it's really a practical question that I've been curious about since I saw what you're doing with this. You set up a real live bank account with these kids and whatnot. How difficult was it to get not commercial, but just to get banks, to actually go along with this? Because that's got to be outside of their business model. It's kind of like, what are you trying to do here?
Entrepreneurship is basically chewing on glass and staring into the abyss. We are. It was crazy. I mean, this is at least 100 times harder than we estimated.
Yeah.
Just going through the banks, getting this all set up. We've had over 1,500 iterations of the app now as we learn from families. Like, we are obsessed on this with our team. And we want to be the world's go-to place for kids to learn money skills. And it's been tough. Banks, traditional banks. I come from a banking family. I come from 4 generations, by the way, of mega wealth. My grandpa they started Interwest Bank, largest small business bank in the country, sold to Wells Fargo for $1.2 billion. He was Ronald Reagan's bank chair. He and my dad built the company. And they put the whole thing in a charitable trust for widows and orphans. And I couldn't be more thankful.
Yeah.
And if you look at the stats, because I'm the go-to expert in financial literacy now, 90% of generational wealth transfers gone by the grandkids. And what I wanted to study was what's underneath that number. What's underneath that number is divorce, estrangement of kids, mental health issues, addiction. A lot of addiction, drugs, alcohol, violence. You get lottery ticket kids. You get imposter syndrome. They live in mom and dad's shadow. And I think if you boil it all down, they lose the value creation drive.
Exactly.
And so when that happens, it's like when you give a kid a participation trophy. They don't want that trophy. They didn't earn the trophy. So for our family, it's we believe, and this is what we teach in our workshops and for GravyStack, heritage is more important than inheritance. Passing on the skills, right? That's what's critical here. Like, if you look biblically for a second, they passed on land, right, as the inheritance, right? And inheritance biblically that's the idea. It's because you need your kids to run the land, work the land to survive, cattle, crops, whatever it would be. But if you actually look at the translations and you look at the Greek roots and the Hebrew roots, that translated today means a last name that means something. It means passing on the skills, the education, the communication, the deep connection in the family for kids to go off into the world and use those skill sets and mindsets to create more value. I think that's the modern day inheritance. So what we try to teach is, hey, use inheritance to really build heritage in your family, right? And the more we can do that, it doesn't mean you give them nothing, right? Like we work with the Green family, the Hobby Lobby family, Bill Hyde. Like we've studied legacy now for many, many years. And I think that's the most important thing that we're seeing here is that families, first generation wealth families, they finally made it. I come from crazy, from rags to riches. I'm covering my bills. I'm doing well, making 6 figures or more. Well, the first thing they say is, I want my kids not to have to deal with what I had to deal with.
Yeah.
I want to give them all the things I never had. I want to make sure they don't have to deal, I want them to give all the opportunities I never had. And they don't realize if they make a bunch of decisions going in that direction, they'll slowly entitle and spoil.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really why we're doing this, because we got to get this right with families. We want to keep them together and keep them strong.
Yeah.
GravyStack is doing that in every realm, which is why I'm proud to be part of it with Scott. And we had to bring Blaine into the fold. Let's do a couple swaps of content. Let's get you on the TV show. Blaine and I, we would love to do more to amplify the message of financial literacy and the impact that it has. Everybody check out Scott Donnell, GravyStack.com. Check out his podcast, Smart Money Parenting, his book, The Value Creation Kid. There's so much to unravel. Thanks for joining us, Scott. We'll see you soon.
Thanks again.
Scott. Take care.
Appreciate you guys.
Love what you're doing.
Appreciate you.
I love that heritage. Heritage.
Yeah. Heritage, not inheritance.
Yeah.
Speaking of inheritance, we have our friend coming, waiting in the wings. Welcome, William Vanderbloemen. He is the CEO, founder of Vanderbloemen Search Group in Houston, Texas. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, David. What a fascinating interview that was.
Wasn't that just cool?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes. We do a ton of this is off topic, but we do a ton of succession planning, and oftentimes it's family succession planning. And there's a great book that we should get in Scott's hands. It's called The Dirty Little Secret About Family Business. And it's all about family succession. There are very few families that have made it past that third gen.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so true. And the Rockefellers in their family bank philosophy is only one way in which to secure that heritage and inheritance compared to.
We did some work a while back for a rescue mission, finding a CEO, and got to know just a little bit the Smuckers family, and they're like 5th generation. It's a public company, but they're still involved in running it. I think that's the oldest one I've found that's really made it a long time.
Yeah,
I've had a chance to interact with.
Yeah, I'm working with one right now that's going into the 5th gen, and they're still operating the company as well, or companies, plural. But, It's
and a lot of people hire Blaine. A lot of people hire Blaine for those family offices because he was around when the first generation formulated the business, and he's seen that evolution.
John B and I are good. Yeah, we were real tight.
the Kraft family, the Hunt family, they're all in with beyond his genius. But I really am excited about your new book coming out, and I think it comes out mid-November in a couple weeks. Be the Unicorn: 12 data-driven habits that separate the best leaders from the rest. I want to take a step before the data-driven habits and ask, what is it that defines best leader, so that then we can kind of unravel data-driven habits to perform. But I think it's important for people to understand how you define a best leader, because so many people have different perceptions of leadership.
Great question. This is the 5th book I've written, and every time it's not a lot of fun. I don't like getting the book out of me. It's
You
not.
should write a book with Blaine. No, you should write a book with Blaine. It's super fun. He writes the whole thing and then just asks you questions to tell stories. And I'll write 100 books with Blaine. It was so easy.
Yeah. So we have 7 kids. So I've been in the labor and delivery
That's not
room a
easy.
lot.
7 kids, not easy.
7 kids. So I've been in a lot of labor and delivery rooms. Never actually given birth, but watching what my wife goes through, that's what it feels like to write a book. Now, I just got in trouble with half of your listeners. I'm not equating the two.
Right.
But there's got to be something in me that needs to get out for it to be a book. And for me, it was a question. And the question was, David, you've had this happen. It doesn't happen often to me, but you meet somebody and within 5 minutes, you're like, this one's different. This one's a winner. And it doesn't happen often. And when I was younger, I would make the mistake of saying, I need to hire them. That's not a good idea. But like the question in my bones is, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm also not the most gullible. So how in 5 minutes is somebody capturing me like that, where I want to sign up for their fan club and all? And then how do they actually perform? The flip side has become another question for me. How is it that I can sit down with someone who's an absolute winner and they're so quiet and humble that they fly right by me and it doesn't hit radar, right? So that I've always kind of wondered that. And then we had a pandemic, and our sector that we serve, every one of our clients closed indefinitely during the pandemic. So, I didn't go to business school, but I learned a business lesson. If all of your clients close indefinitely, your calendar frees up a good bit.
You noticed that, huh?
So we had a chance to step back and look at some of the work we'd been doing. So we've grown every year. And we realized in our searches, when you get down to the very end of a search, the very best people, maybe 8 or 10 a search, get an in-person, long format, face-to-face interview, 3 hours or so long. And they vary. It's not a cookie cutter, but there is a rhythm to them. They're similar. We've tracked those for a long time. And we realized during the pandemic, we've now done 30,000 of those long format face-to-face interviews. And there's probably some patterns we can learn. What if we could figure out how to spot that winner in 5 minutes? That would help us do something better, right? Help our clients. What we found was, there are habits that the very best of the best exhibit that's not just in that first 5 minutes, but is in their job performance and how they create value and they get promoted and they move on. And so we were able to track the very best people we've ever interviewed and then say, what do they have in common? And the answer I thought would be fabulous hair and shiny teeth, or really high IQs, or got to go to a great school, or just as simple as he was the quarterback, she was the head cheerleader, right? It is none of that. It was simple human to human habits that are very common among what we call these unicorns and incredibly uncommon among the rest of us. The list of habits itself is fairly intuitive. I kid people and say I almost titled this book, so I guess Mom was right. Because a lot of the things she was teaching me are actually what the data reveals are the things that separate the best from the rest. So when we got done, we set out selfishly to kind of figure out how to do our job better. But what we found was actually now we're not just spotting unicorns. We've found a map to teach people to become one. And we need to make that a resource that people can have. So rather than worry about our own business, like let's get this in other people's hands, we were going to do just like an ebook and give it away. But we had publishers say, no. You can spread it farther if you do it through a book route. So off we went.
That's great. As I listen to you here, William, but also just as just kind of reviewing the cliff note I've got on the book, it strikes me that what you've just uncovered here is these unicorns, as you're calling them, it's not about what do they do, it's about how they be, how their state of being. That's that right. Translates into the kinds of activities that you're saying sets them apart from others. And I know that you've got 12 traits here, but is there any one of them that seems to stand out as a state of being marker?
Yeah. Well, what a great question. I think, so I have my favorites, but I think maybe the most essential one is self-awareness. And I think that might speak to this state of being, right? And the funny thing is, we polled the unicorns and we did a survey, and we're like, how would you rank yourself in each of these? And you kind of force rank where you are in each of these 12 habits once we had them identified. Self-awareness was the least common habit among the unicorns. Okay. So then we spread out, we dropped back and said, why don't we survey a bunch of people, see what they think about themselves? And we surveyed 250,000 people and tracked the results. We hired a statistician and researcher and did it the right way. And it was amazing what we found out. It was a long survey. Amazing people responded, but they did. And one of the things we asked is for each of these 12 habits, we had a 1 to 5, like 3 is normal, 5 is very above average, 4 is above, you can do the math. So we asked on each of the 12 habits, where would you rank yourself? Self-awareness, least common trait among all the unicorns. The general public, 93% of everybody surveyed said, I'm above average in self-awareness. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but 93% of any group is not just above average. Pretty sure it's 50%. So it's not only the least common trait, this state of being and self-awareness, it's the biggest blind spot for people. So it led us, when we started seeing these things, like, the book is great. We also need to develop a software tool. People can self-assess, see how they measure against Gen Pop and how they measure against unicorns, so they can get a development map and figure out what to work on first and how to become a better team.
Yeah. And I think when you find those people that don't think they're self-aware, humility would rank up very high, because those are the people that know what they don't know. And it's actually a sign of self-awareness to not know what we don't know and to admit that we don't know what we don't know, regardless of our success. And William, you've been exploring those habits, and now you have the data after 30,000 or more face-to-face interviews in order to effectuate a recipe for a unicorn, to be our best selves, to be our finest selves, to be our higher selves, to be intelligent followers, to lead others through our example. We need more conversation and more of you, so please come back. We have other shows. I know Blaine has two new guests on his list for his podcast already, 2 for 2, and we appreciate what you're doing. Everybody, November 14th, Be the Unicorn, 12 data-driven habits that separate the best leaders from the rest. It's a must read or a must listen. Go ahead to vanderblumen.com. Thank you for joining us, William. Yeah,
and Dave, thanks for having me. In case people didn't get the spelling of Vanderblumen, my name is so
right.
No, really, this is the only reason that we named the company after me. My name is so messed up, you can misspell it into Google 100 different ways and you'll end up back. So just try.
It ends up right back in. It's a great Dutch name.
That's so good. Yeah. If they can't spell Meltzer, like Seltzer with an M, they're going to have trouble with Vanderblumen. But thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me. Bye-bye.
Appreciate you. All right. We're 2 for 2, but I guarantee the cleanup hitter today will knock it out of the park. Lauren Goldstein is here, CEO, founder of Golden Key Partnerships. Welcome to Office Hours.
Hello. Thanks for having me again. Yes. Hello.
Yes,
good morning.
Good to have you back. The Biz Doc. No, I swear I've been on your podcast. Is that correct? They're saying I haven't been on your podcast.
You have not, but we are getting you scheduled.
Oh,
we are in talks. Yes.
Well,
Okay. Pick me.
Yes, exactly. Blaine and I will be there. But when I think of the Biz Doctor and I think of Lauren, I think of no BS. It's kind of, look, business is difficult, and I don't want to blow sunshine up your backside and tell you, rah rah ha ha, you're gonna do it and make it, when most people don't. But we need to know the disease in order to have the cure. And when I listened to your podcast, although I thought I was on listening to myself, I see someone who's examining the disease of being a business owner, of running a business, of growing and scaling a business. But it's difficult to tell the truth. What are some of the things that you've learned in order to articulate the difficult conversations of pointing out where a business has, I equate it to, and I can't do this if I was a doctor, hey, sorry, you have cancer and you have 6 months to live. That's pretty much the conversation I have with most business owners.
Yeah.
And I find it almost as difficult because that's at least their baby, if not their self-identity.
Yeah, it's and that's actually how I got the nickname, because many years ago I had a client go through a diagnostic and he basically was like, "Oh, that was so brutal. I feel like you put my business in an MRI machine," and said, "Here's the cancer. You're the biz doc." You know, that was tough, hard truth. And over the years, what I've learned is entrepreneurs want to know what to do, but they don't want to be told what to do. And so it's a conversation and a partnership of really coming back to, what is the vision for your business? What are you committed to? And showing them what is going to happen if they continue not addressing the red flags, the yellow flags, and versus what it's going to look like and the kind of life that they're going to have with their business and life outside of their business if they do address it. And asking permission, which is kind of how we onboard, is, you know, I'm very upfront and I said, some things you might have a feeling that you're gonna like that aren't working, and you're gonna know, like, oh, okay, I actually feel relieved that I thought this was wrong and I confirmed it. And then there's going to be probably some surprises, but ultimately it's designed so that we can get to the root cause and get you out from underneath your business. And I think as long as you come from a standpoint of like not blame, because most of us started our businesses and just got after it. And so you were doing the best you could. And so recognizing that, celebrating the good things going on in the business, and then saying, and now these are the things that we get to address to really bring your business to a healthy, sustainable state moving forward.
You know, most of the work that you do, Lauren, is with service providers. Is
Yep.
that? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's an interesting niche in one sense, because it's usually about you know, and I put this in the context of value. It's different than a hard product. There's a service that I'm really intimately connected to that service, because that's why I founded my business. I mean, in my consulting firm, and I know, David, this is true for you as well. You know, when David and I did this Thursday office hours, originally it was called this, it was the Soul of Business edition. We do, there's 3 different shows that are office hour shows in addition to the TV one. The soul
I think
of
it is
business.
still the Soul of Business edition. We just don't put it on there for some
reason. We just don't put it on there. Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, we don't market it as such. But the idea here of the soul of business, and in work that I do, that the disconnect from the soul of the business is where the toxicity begins to creep in, and the loss of passion and the loss of now that's my assessment. Does that seem to match your experience with the clients that you work with? They've become disconnected with what that founding spark actually was.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, because I think, to your point, when we start our business, we know we can solve a problem, we're passionate about it, and then the business barnacles just start accumulating. Whether
barnacles.
Yes, please use it. Whether it's bad habits or mishires, or running around like a chicken with your head cut off, being chief everything officer instead of having a proactive, strategic business. And so I've seen so much, and that's really the work that I do, is where they're basically on the verge of burnout. And like, if somebody puts another thing on their plate, they're just going to burn the whole thing down. And it's because they haven't mastered that shift of reactivity to proactivity and getting out of operator into owner, so they can get back to the work that they really love doing, instead of the management minutia, which is necessary, but probably should be done by someone else, unless that's your superpower.
Yeah, it does take a great joy to have that superpower. And one of your superpowers is coming in as interim CEO or COO to help facilitate giving a guidance to what that role should be, and getting people in order and structured so that an owner can be an owner and work on the business, not in the business. And the value of that is you're working with 7-figure entrepreneurs, can quickly accelerate it to an 8 or 9-figure business by just extending out a different perspective. And I know you are one of the best in the world at that. That's why we reach out to Golden Key Partnerships, goldenkeypartnership.com. Lauren Goldstein, utilize her. She's the Biz Doctor. Check out the Biz Doctor podcast. You'll see Blaine on sooner enough, and hopefully I'll be on there as well. And you'll see Lauren on our shows, more of our shows. We need more of the doctor. The doctor's in the house. Reach out to her. She's amazing. Thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Lauren.
Bye.
Great job.
Bye-bye.
All right, my friend. Once again, it's so nice to get back on schedule. You know, one of the things that I loved about being at home all the time, I didn't like the reason I was home all the time, but I liked being home all the time, was that I just felt a great rhythm with certain relationships, especially my office hours relationships. Now I was flying to Miami on the red eye, and I asked Nick, I'm like, what day's Blaine coming on Office Hours, the TV show? And I'm not even sure that with the transitions that we've had on our team, anyone reached out, but hopefully you'll reach out to Nick. He's the new guy. We got November and December dates for you. So hopefully you can come on in, and we still do give the Unstoppable Award winner each episode of Office Hours. We have the Unstoppable Entrepreneur from one of our big guests, whether it's Cameron Diaz or Deepak Chopra or Blaine Bartlett. It doesn't matter. We are in support of that great organization. Speaking of which, the reason I did the show and this show with you is I would get an MBA for a day every time I sit down with you. And that's through the takeaways that resonated with me. What was the takeaway that resonated most with you today?
You know, the idea of, I'm still hung up on the business barnacles.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, that was great.
I mean, I just like, he attempted to use that as kind of the anchor for the takeaway here. But the idea, with GravyStack, this literacy, and when William was talking about the unicorns, and then with Lauren, the migration away from, or the move away from the soul of what got me started to begin with, all of that speaks to states of being. Yeah, it's not what I do that makes a difference in my life. It's who I be. And that's the takeaway, I think, with all three of these guests for me today. And part of it's, I just came off of 2 days working with his family office. We're moving into the next generation. And a lot of the conversation was around the relational dynamic. Who are we being with each other that allows for the transfer to take place in a healthy way? And that transfer can be wealth. It can be idea. It can be the transfer of value, the transfer of financial literacy. Who am I being that allows for that to be accessible, that makes a difference? And now that's kind of an abstraction, but that's kind of where my head went today. It's people get wrapped around the axle, I think, a lot when they start paying attention to how do I, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Well, you got to do stuff, but it's how, who do I need to be to have the future that I say I want? Who do I need to be? And that's the takeaway for me.
I thoroughly am excited by that takeaway, and it is relative to the one that I had, and it's understanding inheritance to create a heritage. And in that inheritance, it's just not financial, which Scott Donnell talks about. It's also habitual, which William talks about. And then, of course, it's in the execution, which Lauren facilitates as well. And so understanding what's my genetic, energetic, and financial inheritance, and how can I utilize Scott and William and Lauren in order to facilitate a longer heritage. And we see it around the world today with the atrocities that are going on. What have you inherited in the form of hate? And how are you going to create a heritage of hate, or a heritage of peace, or a heritage of love? And one of the components that I'd like people to at least consider or raise their awareness is just plain forgiveness. No matter who you are and what you believe, start with forgiveness and create a heritage of forgiveness. And I believe you'll find, whether it's in life, business, relationships, you will find peace and ease and success of a heritage of happiness, passion, purpose, and profitability through forgiveness and gratitude. I'm so grateful, Blaine, to have you here. You take your time. It's so valuable. I hope more and more people reach out to utilize Blaine, BlaineBartlett.com. He's my #1 mentor. He's #1 in my playbook and in my heart. Blaine, I will send Las Vegas for filming soon, but I'll see you next week.
I'll be there. I will. I promise. I will see you soon.
Thank you.
Enjoy Miami. You got the color for it.
Exactly. I'll be here 8 hours and then to San Francisco and then home. So thank you very much.
Right.
It's been quite a long month this week for Blaine Bartlett and me. Thank you so much, Blaine.
You bet, buddy. Take care. See you next week.
I will. You got it. All right, everyone. We are here in Miami. Meet up today, 3 p.m. at Turnberry. There it is. Right outside the King Ballroom. Come on, it's 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then tomorrow I'll be in San Francisco downtown at the Westin St. Francis. And that's right in Union Square. You can't miss it. That's straight up noon. Noon is 12 p.m., not 12 a.m., noon, lunchtime. Come and join me there for that meetup in San Francisco at the St. Francis Westin in Union Square. If you need a book, if you want to come to Friday training, it'll be there live in San Francisco, free, over 24 years now. We've been doing free Friday trainings, free books. I send them, I sign them, I pay for shipping, pay the book. I'm on a mission to empower over 1 billion people to be happy, to make more money, help more people, and have more fun. That's what Blaine does, Scott does, William does, Lauren does. We're all on the same mission. Help us. Email me, david@dmeltzer.com. Remember, most importantly, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self. Do good deeds. We'll see you hopefully later today, if not tomorrow. Peace.